Hello, winners, and welcome once again to the Wrong Button Podcast, the show where we talk all things nerd, most things video games, and generally anything that tickles our fancy. And Tyler!
My fancy has been tickled.
Oh, my fancy has been tickled too. I hope you're ready for Rebels Season 5.
Dun, dun, dun. Live action.
Yes!
Why does the animation look different?
So, for those of you guys who are unaware, today is August 23rd. This podcast will be airing roughly about 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, August 24th, to talk about Ahsoka, the first two episodes.
I thought they were fantastic. I was
thought
going to
they
say that off the top of the show.
I'm going to start that off the top of the show because, as Mrs. Play will say, I'm going to steal a direct quote from her, this was everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I'd say that's right, honestly.
So I took notes because it was the 2-hour premiere. I stayed up extra late for me and an 8 p.m. bedtime boy to watch this, and then came home a little bit early from work to do this with you. So let's go ahead and get into the first two episodes of Ahsoka.
Yeah, all right. So off the top, the first thing that really struck me about the show is how gorgeous it is. Something about like the set design, seeing Lothal for the first time in live action, it is gorgeous. I really think that they made a lot of interesting choices with how they, I guess, set up the show. Like, I think there were a couple of interesting points, but tell me your thoughts like through the first episode.
So through the first episode, I'm going to start with the screen crawl because it was red.
Very Clone Wars season 8 reminiscent.
Yes, and starting off the show with this screen crawl that I don't think we've seen since the first season of The Mandalorian.
I think you'd be right. Yeah.
I think it was in the first season of The Mandalorian, but it wasn't in any of the subsequent seasons. I could be wrong. I need to go back and watch those first episodes. But the fact that the show started a Star Wars movie. I had the screen crawl, I had the ship. And then it immediately went into okay, well, what's going on? And it to me it showed off where the universe is at as far as what people know and I almost want to say like politicking.
Yeah.
That is going on in a way, because we start off and it feels like it should be an Imperial starship.
Yeah, I can see where you're feeling like that. It definitely had the look of one of the transports of what the rebels were escaping Hoth with, Yeah, from the original.
Not the calamari like medical frigate, but it started to round off, but it was still very triangular.
Yeah. And
I was looking at that, I was like, this is, and then you go inside and it's like, oh, okay, it's like this is a New Republic ship. And I was like, oh, this is where we're starting. And then to start off with, we're receiving codes. Sir, because there's another ship approaching the ship, and you learn it's a prison transport. And we just go ham, and it's so much so that like the captain of the bridge is like, okay, well, who's hailing us? They're older codes, sir.
But they check out. I knew right when they said, "Oh, it's an old Jedi clearance code," and I was like, "That's not Ahsoka. Yeah. Ahsoka wouldn't be out here using some old Jedi clearance codes. It's our lovely new antagonist, Balin, played by the late great Ray Stevenson. By the way, him and his beard. By the way, beautiful.
I wish I could grow a square jawed beard like
me
that.
too. God, it must be nice. It must be nice. I definitely think it shows a big point as to where the New Republic's at this point in time. I don't think it gave you a rough estimate as to how long it's been since the fall of the Empire, like the Battle of Jakku. Did it give you like a date? So I don't think it did.
It doesn't. That I'm gonna say, and this is Mrs. Play and I both thought that this was the the laziest writing of almost any Star Wars thing that I've seen was the governor of LaFall is giving a speech.
Yeah.
And he says, several years ago, the Imperial fell thanks to Commander Bridger and Commander Sabine Wren.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean several? Like,
they're not going to give me a time point, like an anniversary date. Yeah, that's fair. That is very lazy writing.
And to me, I was like, you guys, I don't know if you were trying to do that by this, but I felt personally that was that was like the lowest point of it. So we don't know where it's at, but because of it all, if I had to take like a soft stab in the dark, I'm gonna say it's been at least
somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 years, maybe 10.
I was going between 8 and 10.
Yeah.
Not quite, because I think it would have said a decade, and so several. I'm thinking, okay, it's not 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And we've established some other things that we'll get to that have happened in between them.
Exactly. Yeah.
That make me think it's between like 8 and 10.
Shout out to the New Republic having an entire ship just for Morgan Elsbeth. I always say this in Star Wars because I feel like this happens. You have to place a main character on a prison ship if you don't want it to get taken out. Because if you go back to the last season of The Mandalorian, you had Moff Gideon's prison transport got when he was on his way to trial. The second the scroll said, she's on her way to trial, Morgan Elsbeth is. I immediately knew that she's not going to make it to that trial. Who makes it to a New Republic trial in this universe? Nobody.
Yeah, I don't. So, did you read the Ahsoka book or listen to it?
The one by E.K. Johnston, right? About
so.
Ahsoka's time in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Yeah.
Yes.
Great book.
It talks about like it's the first time it canonizes how we get white lightsabers and what happens to the crystals. Okay. Yeah, that was. I remember listening to it when it came out because it's read by Ashley.
Yes.
Which to me is just if you're gonna do it, it's one of the few books I'm like, no, just do the audiobook. You're fine. But yeah, so the prison transport, and then the other thing I like is the opening scene when we see, I'm sorry, it was Balin, but I can't remember his first name now. What was his name? You just said Balin. Balin Skull.
Skull, yeah.
Yeah, I had to look it up for a second. I was blanking. I love how reminiscent. One, it was literally like the start of episode 1, like on a ship, here to like do some negotiating, and then 2.
Well, the negotiations were short.
Every one of their movements felt more reminiscent of episode 4, 5, and 6. And I gotta say, I'm actually very excited to have the slower, heavier movements of that era. Like I know Duel of Fates is great. I know the battle.
Yeah.
In Mustafar, it is so great and iconic. And watching like the flurry but I was really excited because he's very close. Like they're aiming center mass because you don't shoot to kill, or you don't like shoot to wound, you shoot to kill.
Yeah.
And so it made so much sense for how he was blocking, and it looked very efficient. It looked very like he wasn't expending as much energy, and it was also like you are practiced. You're flying a Jedi code, and his opening thing where he goes, "I'm not a Jedi."
Yeah, you're right about one thing. Yeah.
But I don't think he's a Sith.
No. We're definitely being introduced to almost like a Ben. I wouldn't quite say that they're the ones in the middle like Bendu from Star Wars Rebels, but they're not completely dark.
I would say like Fallen.
Yeah, Fallen Jedi.
Fallen Jedi, like not Dark Jedi, not Sith, but like Fallen Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I would still put Ahsoka. Like she's just on the other side of that spectrum.
Yeah. On the other side of the spectrum, that's in the middle between the two actual sides of the spectrum.
Yes.
Yeah.
they are actually on the spectrum.
If we could draw you a scale in audio form, we would, guys.
It would be on your left, you'd have like white. On the right, you'd have black. In the middle, there'd be gray. and Ahsoka would be on one side of gray.
I think that opening scene also really showed where the New Republic's at from an ego standpoint. You know, what was really set up, not well, but with the sequel trilogy, is that you see the New Republic's like, oh, we beat the Empire. You know, we're great. Nothing's gonna kill our fragile peace.
Yes.
You know, and I think a lot of that was embodied in the captain of that ship. He's sitting there. He's like, I'm calling their bluff. These guys aren't Jedi. And it's like you go down there, limited security detail, and you choose to receive these people thinking that, like, this is a New Republic vessel. Like, you can't do anything to us because we're the New Republic now. And obviously, they were, I think they were proven wrong a little bit.
I think they were proven wrong. But I was also like, well, how many times does this happen? Like, Jedi robes, they're like, it's a distinct look.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like it's that hard to recreate in this universe.
Now, put on a robe and you're golden.
Put on a robe and you're fine. So I was really excited for excited for that, and the fact that it's their armor wasn't Clone Wars armor.
No, it was nice though.
But it was reminiscent of like, no, we have been we like he fought in the Clone Wars, and I think his Padawan has on some Beskar. Like the silver on her
kind of looked like it, yeah.
Yeah.
And her his Padawan, I don't know if you caught this too, but also had the classic Padawan braid as well, which I thought was really interesting. Another key point between being brought up as a Sith or a Jedi. It's like obviously Balin's raising his Padawan with Jedi teachings, but almost Ryan Airy from Screen Crush said it best, like with a different objective in mind. Shout out Ryan Airy and Screen Crush, best YouTube channel ever. But
oh, thanks.
Yeah. Well, besides ours. Hold on a minute. Hold on.
You're good.
I guess I hit the wrong button there, huh?
Yeah.
No, so I thought that entire opening scene was interesting, and then you flash right over to Ahsoka exploring some what looked to be originally as Jedi ruins, and then obviously were not Jedi ruins.
Yeah. So she's exploring some ruins. One, her getting into the ruins, that will never not be sexy.
Oh, it's so cool.
I'm also gonna plagiarize that from Mrs. Play. Like just the lightsabers down, the throwing her arms around, and then like pulling them back to catch them in like the same hand.
Yep.
And then just that will never not be a sexy entrance.
Ahsoka inherited the flashiness from Anakin. Okay, like you can never not tell me that.
She did. She totally did. I almost too. She was in the middle of a video game quest. I like
100%. It felt like Fallen Order.
Yeah,
when you're on what was the planet? Zepho. Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt like a Zepho arc right there.
And she's adjusting it. She's lining things up, and I'm like, because I'm looking at Mrs. Play. I'm like, she's just playing the game right now. She's not like. Yeah. This is just Ahsoka, the video game we didn't get.
Yeah, I sat there and I was like, I could do that. Put me right in that little cavern. I got it.
Yeah. So the way the sphere looked, I know you haven't played much of Survivors yet, but they have.
I have been. I just started you guys' Let's Play of it though.
Okay.
Last week. But yeah, so I'm getting there. I'm learning every step of the way with you guys.
Did you get to this? Or have you seen us get to the second planet yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, spoiler, not spoiler. Like,
oh my god,
there are things like reminiscent of what the Zepho had.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember the first game, they had those balls of power. It looked like someone had shrunken down like one of their like balls that was going around, or a very Mrs. Play actually said like early age holocron.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. No. Oh, that's a great way to interpret it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, so it's like a Zepho thing, and Mrs. Play's like, oh no, it's like the thing from the end of the game that had the list of kids. And I was like, but those are square. And then you open it up, and no, she's 100% right. Like it's another. Oh, this is hard to say. Like species, races, holocron.
Yeah, another way for another artifact. There you go.
Yeah. but that was cool. And then that was really awesome seeing her find it, and then the droids attack.
Yeah, she comes up. The droids are just sitting there, which were HK models, which were another really cool callback to KOTOR, the Old Republic.
Yeah, because one of those things I'm like, are we trying to like extra soft canon this until we can like remake KOTOR?
Filoni is the king of soft canon. He's bringing back everything slowly but surely.
I'm actually, and KOTOR is so far back that it can't really fuck up the canon.
No,
or mess
at all.
Canon. Yeah. The HK models just dropping back down in the hole, and then just yeah.
I sat there and watched. And I was like, how did they not see this coming? She has lightsabers.
Yeah, but if they didn't see her go in, or they're like, oh, she cut at an opening, like you don't know what's down there. But you're right. No, that was just that was really.
Oh, she was so quick with it too.
Yeah.
One droid, two droid. There they go. Obviously makes quick work of the first two droids. And can we talk about their self-destruct mechanisms though?
It made me think of the what was the planet with the roly people from Clone Wars?
With the roly people.
Yeah, they were like the ferrets or the bush babies, but they could roll, and the droids were going to test the new.
Oh, yeah, the weapon that was on the tank that could kill organic matter.
Yeah, it was nothing more than like super napalm.
Yeah,
but that's what it, because when it exploded out, Mrs. Play's looking. I'm like, no, that's from the Clone Wars. Like, I think that's some like illegal stolen war tech.
Yeah,
and that's what they were using. Yeah,
that was massive. She was running from the ruins. I guess she's encountered these droids and their self-destructing mechanism before at some point. But
I'm also thinking she's a veteran. Like,
oh yeah, true,
she's
fair.
a vet, and she's like, oh, that's 5 of the. Yeah, I'm just getting out.
Yeah. And she's getting out of the ruins. She calls for Professor Huang, which so excited for him to be back. We've talked about him a lot when the trailers dropped. I think we talk about him, incessantly. One of the coolest droids to ever be assembled.
75% original part.
Yes. Hey, he will not let you forget that.
Seeing him come back. Seeing them literally just be like, hey, you know that kid shit? Well, it's not really.
Yeah, not actually, buddy.
And we're pulling it in.
Which is another thing I wanted to touch on real quick is that how confusing do you think Ahsoka must be for the more mainstream Star Wars, fans? For those who don't really dabble into the animation, which you should, you 1000% should.
If you give everything the first season, Clone Wars the first 2 seasons, Rebels the first season, to be a kid show before you
get into the meat and potatoes of it.
Before it becomes like, hey, come for the Star Wars, stay for the political intrigue.
Yeah.
I would. You know what? I don't know, and I sent this to you. I thought I sent you the meme, but it was, you've seen Back to the Future, right?
Yeah.
The point where he's back in time and he's having dinner and they're watching this. Oh, I know this one. This is a classic where this happens. They go, it's just airing, and instead it says, oh, George Lucas, like, oh, this is a classic for you guys called The Clone Wars. And it's like, well, I guess you guys really aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are gonna love it.
Love it, yeah.
So it's one of those things where I could see it being confusing because it's all there, and people being people, going like, I don't want to watch an animated show, the stigma, kids show, things like that. But at the same time, okay, who's this droid? He knows them, and as you'll learn, he knows lightsabers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting that to get revealed, but also like, I fought with your father during the Clone Wars. What the fuck are the Clone Wars? Like,
true.
We didn't know until episode 2.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
a throwaway line in a movie from when did the original
1977?
Yeah. Kicking off an entire generation of this.
Yes.
I try not to think about that because it breaks my brain a little bit. Yeah. No. I think Filoni did a really good job of introducing a lot of Easter eggs and people we've seen, whether it be Huang, Ryder Zadi, Hera. Shout out Hera, by the way, and also shout out the casting choices of this show because they are amazing. Did great work on the casting department.
So I'm gonna drop something. So one, Hera is Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah.
Ramona fucking Flowers is in this bitch, and I'm so excited. Like I was like, I can see it in her cheeks. I can see her cheekbones.
And it's so funny because watching it last night made the comment of Sabine being almost like a Ramona Flowers of Star Wars, and just like in the event, like the hair changes all the time.
Yeah.
Like the personality. That's made that connection almost immediately when I was watching this show. I was like, wow. I was like, and also the rock music on the speeder as she's like going down Lethal's highway. I'm like, am I watching Scott Pilgrim right now?
Like it felt very much like we have the I'm gonna say big band is what it always was. It was big band and it was jazz.
Yep.
For the original series, and in this one, it's like, well, no, we just grew up with people who would have went through a war. Where's my punk rock? Where's my anarchy?
Yeah.
But throwing out there the governor of Lethal.
Ryder
Azadi was played by Clancy Brown, who played Ryder Azadi in Rebels. It was just one of those things. I'm like, holy, like Mr. Krabs is reprising his role.
Yep.
And the model looked so good in the show that like the minute I saw it, I was like, oh shit, you're back. Like, I didn't even need to be introduced.
Yeah.
And then I just love Clancy Brown. Like shout outs Clancy Brown. But yeah, no, that you're right. The casting for this,
amazing. Like deserves 10 million stars. Like whoever that casting director is, give that person a raise. But getting back to I guess the storyline of the first episode, because you and I, we like to go on our little tangents.
We've kept it very like
we're trying. I'm trying.
Yeah, go ahead. Back on the story.
Actually, I guess it gets to introducing Sabine, which is right where we are. Huh.
Yeah, Sabine.
Yeah, you're right. Hey,
yes.
Look at us on task.
Before we go to Sabine, though, they just took the art out of Rebels, put it on the back, and said, "Oh, well, it's an artist rendition."
Yeah,
and it was just you're like that. It fits so perfectly.
It does. Fits great. I can never get over how Zeb looks in that mural, though. He looks so goofy. But the ceremony, obviously Sabine doesn't show up, which is a classic Sabine move because, she was never the greatest at public speaking.
Not really. A little bit of PTSD, yeah.
A little bit. And, I think it's fitting that she doesn't show up to, like, a celebration or a anniversary?
It was like the anniversary commemoration, yeah.
I guess because in her mind, it's not done yet. As long as Ezra's still out there somewhere in this galaxy or another, there's not like, there's nothing to celebrate. Kind of reminds me of Kobe Bryant back in the day. He got interviewed. He was up in the finals. I think it was like 2 or 3-1. He's like, how do you feel being in this moment? He's like, job's not finished. Like, you see the job's not finished? That's Sabine right now. She's like, I'm not celebrating anything until I get my friend back. In air quotes, friend.
Or
back.
Or at least confirmation.
Yeah.
I want closure is what she needs. And I feel like that is what this show is going to turn into.
Yeah.
This show is going to be nothing but a giant allegory for closure.
Hope so. Anyway, I need my closure.
And the reason we get introduced to Sabine is because Ahsoka recovers the artifact, and Huang can't figure it out.
Yep.
And so Ahsoka does what anyone good one does. She phones a friend. She calls Hera, and we get introduced to Hera, and
Hera doing her best pawn shop impressions. Like, oh, I know a guy. I know a girl who's an expert in ancient artifacts related to art.
And I thought that was... I thought that was a really cool way to then introduce you to Sabine, which... And it's one of those... You can see that there was a history there.
Something we haven't seen between, in the time gap, yeah.
But even still, like, you don't see that if you were to watch Rebels, you still wouldn't know about that history, which I thought was a really nice added touch. So, yes, if you watch Rebels, I think you're going to enjoy this show. But this is also where I'm going to say, hey, if you haven't watched any of that stuff, don't worry about it. we will sit here and we'll walk you through who everybody was.
Yeah.
And so to introduce us to Sabine Wren and her character being like this artist, but then like when she goes to her room and you get to see the Locat, which shout outs to her having a Locat in her room, who's a puppet.
The most. I just want to like a Locat now.
Oh, that's on Mrs. Play once.
Just sitting around, you know, getting some food, sleeping all day,
Being a cat. On Lethal.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But then when she goes to her room, you see a very familiar shape, especially if you've watched The Mandalorian, and like The Mandalorian, you see a Mandalorian helmet.
Yeah, under the desk.
Yeah.
Or I guess desk table.
Whatever it is. It's sitting there, and I thought that was one, it's covered in shadow, so you literally have foreshadowing. Yeah, it's in the foreground and it's in shadow. Like, that's
yeah, just maybe.
But I thought that was a really good way to introduce her. And then for fans of Rebels, you had... I am not convinced that the scene where Ahsoka flies in is literally not straight out of the animated series.
Oh, no, it totally is. 100% is.
But I think like they might have changed the color saturation.
Yeah.
I think they just reused that and changed some color saturation.
Yeah, and I think that's actually gonna get... I think it shows where we're at more of like a, I guess in like a chronological sense, because at the end of Rebels you have Ahsoka coming back to see Sabine, and then they go off to find Ezra. Like, yes. That's the ending of the show. And I always thought that leading into Ahsoka, we were going to pick up right where we left off, right at that spot.
Yes.
But obviously, through these first two episodes, that scene comes at the very end of the second episode. So really, these first two episodes are set up to what is happening at the end of Rebels. Like, that's like the kicking off point. Does that make sense?
So I don't think so.
You don't think so?
So I think the end of Rebels was, let's say comfortably, 2 years later.
Okay.
Because it talks about the fall of the Empire.
Yep.
Sabine goes back because she can't figure out where Ezra is. And Ahsoka comes in because she's wearing white.
Typical Ezra.
And she has the staff. And she doesn't have that here. So I think that was her coming in.
Originally,
she came in, said, hey, we're going to go find him. I'm going to teach you how to be a Jedi, because I don't think a Jedi is a Force user. I think Jedi is a person that knows what's right and wrong,
goes where they're needed,
and is willing to do what it takes to help people out, and not just allow suffering to exist.
Ahsoka, make the Jedi Order great again.
Oh God, 2024. Yeah, Ahsoka. Ahsoka 2023, 2024. Make the Jedi great again.
Yeah, no, that's a good take on it. I'm not sure if I'm with you 100%. I think we'll see who's right in the third episode when it kicks off. She was wearing
black in this one, and she didn't have the staff. Like
it could have just been a stylistic choice by Filoni.
I'm tough, but
hey, you know, we'll find out though.
Okay,
we'll find out. I'm not 100% on the train, but I see where you're going with it. But maybe it's just a different. I just think that the scenes were too similar. Or I guess maybe I am on the train with you, and this is the place for them to meet again and kick. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The first time
you guys are seeing me like change my mind here in real time.
The first time she became the Padawan, and then that failed.
Yep.
And all we know is there's history, and we get like the fact that Ahsoka took on a Padawan, and Ahsoka's big thing is I'm not a Jedi. And to me, that is, for her to take on a Padawan is clearly her saying, you know what, there are some traditions that need to be kept from the Jedi Order. And I think this is where with forgetting his name because I'm doing that. Balin Skull. I think this is where we're really going to see like
Offshoots of
the foil of yes, this guy's doing something dark and a little bit more sinister,
Mhm.
and Ahsoka's not, but they're both saying, no, these are core concepts that are good.
Yeah, they're two pieces of the same puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Or they came from the same machine, basically.
Yes.
Different approaches, but yeah. Sabine. In this episode, I don't think I've ever watched an adaptation from a live action character to an animated character, but it felt exactly like watching Sabine in her attitudes.
Her eyes and how she like her mouth, like she does a lot of the things where it's like the side eye of Sabine or the like.
Yep.
You're right.
When she was stealing the key, the artifact. Do we have the orb?
Yeah.
The circle.
The artifact.
Yeah. When Ahsoka was like, "Yeah, you're not taking it off the ship, but nice try," and you could just see the look that Sabine gives, and I was like, I've seen this look a million times. She's going to take this off the ship. And
not even because plot, but because this is who her character is, because we've watched the previous series.
Yeah. For all the watchers of Star Wars Rebels, you know Sabine and Ezra get into a lot of hijinks that way. But yeah, so you can obviously see the tension between Sabine and Ahsoka, the tension that only comes from a master and a Padawan.
Yeah.
You could see it a lot within Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship during the Clone Wars. It's a lot of resenting the master because you don't think the master's right. Spoiler alert, most times the master is right. So if you say don't take an orb from a ship, then don't take an orb from a ship. However, Sabine does takes it back to the communications tower, which I love. That's where she's living after Rebels, by the way.
Yeah.
Because this is a place where Ezra made his home on Lothal during the Empire's occupation. Lived there before he became involved with Phoenix Squadron and all that. So I think it's a nice. It really displays how Sabine hasn't really moved on from everything, which is why you say that Ahsoka is going to provide, closure. I hope.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
I was going to say that, I understand why she took the artifact, because I also am somebody who needs to be able to think freely in a space that's my own. So, Ahsoka said not to take it, but I also would have taken it in that scenario. No, sorry, Ahsoka. My bad, but...
Yeah, I didn't see a coffee machine on that ship. I don't know if I could have done it.
Yeah.
And sometimes a cat just being on your chest makes you think better.
Exactly.
I do have one thing that I want Dave Filoni to answer.
Yeah.
And I think Dave Filoni needs to answer for this.
Mm-hmm.
How far is the distance from the communication tower to Lothal? Because I feel like it changes based on the episode.
All the time. Oh my goodness.
She's doing
speeder speed, maybe
110 down the highway,
yeah.
a little bit faster, and it feels like it's taking inappropriate long. Ahsoka comes in a spaceship, and it feels like it takes inappropriately long.
The spaceship part I really thought was long. Yeah. I was like, shouldn't she have been there already?
Yeah. But yeah, her taking that back, and then I like the fact that the other thing we're getting closure for, and that has been alluded to in the. And I'm guessing this is all. If I had to bet, I think this is an 8-episode series.
Something like that, probably.
I'm betting every trailer will be done by episode 4.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so
a good amount of it, I think, was done within the first 2 episodes.
Yeah,
so.
the only thing we're missing is the fight. Is the fight between the Jedi and the Sith.
Yeah.
Or
Fallen Jedi.
The Fallen
whatever
Jedi.
Whatever they call them, they'll call themselves something eventually, but
or they'll get labeled something. Yeah, but I like the fact that the other thing that we're gonna tangle with and is gonna dabble slightly in the second episode is Ahsoka never got closure.
No.
So
and I really thought she would have made peace with everything by now, but she did not.
And I think this is where, because I would say that in in Rebels, and so spoiler for Rebels, guys, when Ahsoka has to face Darth Vader, and she learns who Darth Vader is.
I'm getting goosebumps just think that is there are a few moments in Star Wars that give me goosebumps, and that is the one every time.
The mass crack, hearing, and I thought they did it super well in Obi-Wan as well, where, hey, that's Hayden Christensen's voice. No, that's the actor for Anakin from Clone Wars, the one that Ahsoka would have
Blended
known.
with Darth Vader, yeah.
And then James Earl Jones.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm sitting here, yeah.
Yeah.
But, so she, in that moment, I'm talking about Ahsoka. So in Obi-Wan, Anakin absolves Kenobi, absolves Ben, right?
Yeah, of any blame.
Of any blame. Gives him the quote of, I did this. This is me. This is who I am, which allows, Ben to sit there and say, hey, from a certain point of view, I was right. By the way, that point of view was your dad's. But
from a certain point of view.
Neither here nor there. But in thinking back to Rebels, it was join me. Ahsoka, join me again. And then other than that, though, it was no, I can't do that. I have to save you. I have to do something. And he's just like, you're still that stubborn kid. And for all intents and purposes, kills her.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how that stopped. So she still never got to say goodbye to Anakin.
No.
And I think that's what eats her. She didn't save Anakin. She talks about walking away from him. Like, I never completed my training. I walked away from it all and tried to say, this is not who I am. And it wasn't until the arc that everyone hates in the final season of Clone Wars with the two sisters.
Oh, the Martez sisters?
Martez sisters. Yeah. But I think what was so important to that is when they found out who she was, they're like, no, you are what a Jedi is to us. You are someone who comes in, notice something wrong, and you do the right thing because that's the right thing to do. And going back to it, because she talks about, the whole tension between Sabine and Ahsoka is Ahsoka walked away from Sabine as the master this time, not the apprentice.
Yeah.
And if you want to foil that back to Rebels, when Ezra, they go to see Shakti. They go to find Shakti.
No, it was Luminara.
Was it Luminara?
Yeah, it was Luminara.
It was Luminara.
In the beginnings, yeah.
Yeah. And
so messed up, by the way.
Yeah. But Kanan's like, I'm going to get you to this master because I'm not a master. I can't do this. I don't know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And he sits down and he looks at Ezra after fighting everything with the Grand Inquisitor and sitting down. And he looks at him and goes, Master Yoda used to say something all the time, which is, do or do not, there is no try. I never understand it. So yes, I'm going to train you. I am going to fail. You are going to fail. We are going to fail.
Together.
But we're going to go through this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, like, once again, we're getting to like a closure thing where Kanan internalized like a good thing there, but Ahsoka's got this kind of like fragmented portion of it, and that past of her failing and walking away when, as a Padawan, her life failed her, her family, everything failed her, and she walked away, and so she kind of did it too, and so we're getting closure. Closures could be the theme of this entire thing. But yeah, so I'm all that to say is I think Ahsoka going back and her entire thing was being right. Master and apprentice, hurt and betrayal, but now we're seeing it from Ahsoka, seeing it from Anakin's perspective to Sabine.
Mm-hmm. That was beautifully said.
Thank you.
By the way, got me. You have me in my feelings here for a moment. I also think that's what happens when you put two very extremely stubborn, hard-headed personalities together. Anakin and Ahsoka. Ahsoka and Sabine. Ahsoka. I always forget how hard-headed Ahsoka was in the beginning, because her character growth over the Clone Wars, subsequently in Rebels, was a thing of beauty. What we'd love to call a Dave Filoni masterclass, if you will.
Especially after the animated movie. I was telling Nicole, I was like, I don't think I've made her watch the animated movie, or we started to, and she's like, this is bad. And I'm like, yeah. And that's why we watched Clone Wars, and then we get to the Battle of Christopolis.
Yep. Good. Yeah, I remember, dude. Yeah, I remember the Clone Wars movie coming out in 2008, and I was like, "What is this?
Yeah,
this is interesting." But okay. But I was also like 11 when it came out, so like it was a little cooler to me still because it was like Star Wars, and there were clones everywhere and battles, and Obi-Wan being Obi-Wan. But no, back on topic. I mean, it's hard. It was hard seeing Ahsoka turn away from somebody like that, and then also not admitting that she turned away in that beginning. Like, obviously, give credit to Sabine, like she tried to confront it, but obviously, things didn't come to a head until later in the second episode. But let's get to the big part of the first episode: a lightsaber duel between Sabine and Balin's apprentice, which for some reason her name is escaping me right now.
I think it's in the book. If it's the same apprentice, and because Balin is from Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to Google that. Can we actually? We're gonna back up 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
How confused were you?
Oh boy. Oh yes.
When Ahsoka said Sabine was her apprentice at one point.
So confused because Rebels made it very apparent that Sabine was not Force sensitive.
Yes.
Kanan said it himself. Which also, Kanan was never mentioned in any part of the show, which I was a little sad about.
Also, Hera, I know you're a big time general.
Where's your kid? Where's your son? her son would be a perfect timestamp for us to like. Oh, her son's like 7 or 8. Like
he's in preschool. Okay, how
like 5-6 years. Yeah, she's just popping around doing general stuff. You're so right. Like, where do you have a sitter for what? No. Jace, right? It was
Jace. Yeah, who's also a great pilot. Yeah, this is a Mrs. Play question. What happened to her when she was young and her parents were, because her dad was in the military. She's a Navy brat. She would know. I wouldn't. But that to me was
Shin Hati. They did say it in Ahsoka, by the way. That's
Shin Hati. Okay.
Yeah.
So because of you, this is just all credit to Tyler here. On my original watch through of Obi-Wan, I watched it with no subtitles, and I've started watching everything now with subtitles.
Because of the stormtrooper scene.
Yep. And so that's what really sparked it. And I watched so much sub stuff on anime. But so her saying that she was an apprentice, like, it threw me because Mrs. Play, like I was explaining to her, I was like, well, you remember I've told you about the Mandalorians and Mandalore going from like Old Republic, and I'm like, but when Kanan's training her and she's fighting Ezra, she uses like the whip, and the other Mandalorian goes, "We're not Jedi."
Yeah.
So we have to use other things to do that.
Yeah, to compensate, which the Mandalorians always compensate well. So.
And Kanan sits there and goes, "There's a reason why you guys lost." And I'm like, all right, dude, it's a bit of an asshole. You won so you can say it.
Yeah.
But you're still a bit of an asshole.
Yeah. He's right.
Yes. But that being said...
Don't gotta say it, but yeah, he's right.
But that being said, like, it was something where I'm like... And that's where it took me a little bit to click, where it was, no, Ahsoka realizes a Jedi is not a Force user. A Jedi is a person who goes out and does what's right.
Yeah, it's a true meaning of what a Jedi's about.
But yeah, that totally confused me. Go ahead, we're going to the lightsaber duel, because that was terrible.
Well, also now I have to back up 30 seconds too, because before the duel, with the help of Star Wars Coffee and a lovely Lothcat with you, Sabine manages to unlock the key, which shows one of the prettiest star maps I've ever seen. The visuals of this show, I am like still gushing over. It is pretty.
I also like canonically how like it has all the like extra with it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the star map that we saw in Star Wars Force Awakens. That is the star maps that you get to navigate when you were playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yep.
So I'm so glad that they're like, no, it has a design. It can be pretty, but this is what they look like. Yeah. This is how they function. Go ahead.
Until the star map reveals the location of where Thrawn and Ezra ended up going on their great Purgil adventure.
Mhm.
A different galaxy.
Yes.
Which after watching the first episode, I took a 5-minute pause between episode 1 and 2 just to process what the hell just got dropped on us.
Mhm.
A different galaxy. Not the unknown regions, which I thought this is where the show was. I thought they were in the unknown regions somewhere, maybe somehow they got back to like the Chiss Ascendancy or in that kind of spot. But no, a different galaxy.
So that was gonna be my thing, and I guess we'll get to that in like the second episode. But yes, but you see a different galaxy, and then HK shows up.
Yep,
and has to deal with a filthy meatbag.
Yeah, HK humor is unparalleled. By the way,
it's fantastic.
Yeah, and first of all, while Sabine is being held by the first droid, the second droid just goes in there and wrecks her crap, man. I mean, that was a standard demolition job.
I am honestly surprised that we didn't get a herald that she was a Mandalorian when he was shooting the desk where everything was, and a blast didn't like ricochet off the helmet and hit him. That's my only I'm surprised we didn't do that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, Ahsoka was right. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have taken the artifact off the ship because stuff like this happens. But she managed to get out of the droid's grip.
Mm-hmm.
Takes the one to town. I think gets a couple of shots in the leg. Gets down to the base of the control tower, and then there's Shin, who had I think like 3 lines the entire episode, maybe 3. Maybe even 2.
What happens when Thrawn gets here and then like something there? Oh, why do we listen to her? So Shin gets there. I want to go back like a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that felt like because plot was Baylan Skoll. So what happens here is Ahsoka is taking the artifact to Sabine Wren to figure out because she can figure out puzzles and she likes art.
Yep.
Baylan Skoll, goes ahead and rescues Morgan from season 2 of The Mandalorian. Or was that season 1?
No, that was season 2.
Season 2. They rescue her, and we learn she's a Night Sister.
Which that was a bomb being dropped. I don't know why I never guessed that in the Mandalorian, or maybe I don't think I ever saw anybody really bring it up.
They didn't. All we knew was that she was a governess, or governor, who had close ties to Thrawn.
Yep.
It makes sense that she's not just a human, and I like as this show has gone on, like when we see her, I'm like, oh, her hair's getting gray, and I'm like, it's like the opposite of her roots are showing. The dye's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And like she's getting paler. Like, oh, you were wearing some serious foundation. She's getting markings as the show's going on. And I was like, oh, cool. You've been like, it gives you something more here, and it also establishes, oh, Marin's not the last Night Sister. There are Night Sisters elsewhere.
How many of them are there though? That's the real question. Because their numbers have got to be pretty shot after Grievous went ham on Dathomir, because he went ham.
Was it? It was Grievous.
It was Grievous. Yeah, okay. Grievous was.
We've had this conversation.
I think it was one of the Grievous's only true displays of
martial prowess.
Yeah. Like the Grievous you wanted to see more instead of the one who just got absolutely routed by Obi-Wan every single time. Coughed his way, took an escape pod, rinse and repeat.
Time to abandon ship. Put the hat and cape on him.
Yep.
But yeah, so they go back there, and one of the few things that I'm also gonna like this is minor. Like I said,
wait, hold on. One just quick question: who do you think knows more about lightsabers, Huyang or Grievous? Who has a bigger collection?
So collection doesn't mean no more. I think if a lightsaber broke, Grievous couldn't fix it.
Are you sure about that?
Positive.
I don't know, man.
How do you really think he takes them apart? They're war trophies. Like, it's like what's his name from who was taking the war trophies when they were trying to figure out which clone was leaking information, and he had the droid.
Oh,
fingers.
what's his face? Yeah.
Yeah, he could take him off the hand, but he didn't take apart the finger.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that all the General Grievous memes influence me. You know, it's like every scene you see a lightsaber being thrown or something, General Grievous comes out of nowhere. Anyway, you were saying,
but they Morgan sends is like send your apprentice to Lothal, and she's like, why? And Balin just goes, oh, that's where Ahsoka's former apprentice lives. And it was one of those things like,
how do you know that?
Where the fuck have you been? And how do you know this? Like, and especially because in a little bit of a later scene, Morgan's like, what do you feel? And he goes, her presence in the Force
eludes me.
However,
her determination
is like palpable. It's ever present. And it's just one of those things. I'm like, that. Like I said, it's one of the only other points where I'm like, because plot.
I was gonna say, great way to describe Ahsoka though. That's yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know that though?
And that's one of the only points. Like it's the several years ago, which just bothered me.
Yeah.
And then that point where I'm like,
and how do you know it's because Ahsoka's obviously learning about Balin for the first time. It's like got the hologram from Hera, and Huang's
looking at the lightsabers.
Yeah, and so like this is obviously her first time, wondering who she's dealing with. But what the hell? But I guess that really displays that Balin has the ability of foresight or some sort of. He has like maybe premonitions. His abilities in the Force are he's very attuned to the Force, which makes me really sad that we're not going to see Ray Stevenson in the next season because unfortunately he passed away. Because just through 2 episodes, I really enjoyed the scenes with Balin.
Yes,
he's I also have a soft spot for older Jedi with like a class to them. That's why I'm a Count Dooku apologist. That's how I label myself. I will ride or die with Count Dooku. Count Dooku was right. And
Count Dooku was better in sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Count Dooku was done more justice in Tales of a Jedi than he was in Episode 2.
I think he was done more justice in Tales of the Jedi and Episode 2, but kind of was displayed as really, truly evil in Clone Wars. I don't think he was done justice in Clone Wars. That's my...
Clone Wars he was, but it was also like, oh no, there's been like... There were just points where it was... He kind of felt power. Like you could just sense the power and the betrayal of the Sith. Yeah. Especially when you get the ideals of what he was supposed to be fighting for. You
never got to read or listen to Dooku Jedi Lost.
I need to, yeah.
We have, for all the lovely listeners out there, I go back and forth with Chris on this because Dooku Jedi Lost is arguably one of my favorite Star Wars books to ever exist. Yeah, you write it down, buddy. You write it down.
I will write. I've been talking to Mrs. Play about getting an Audible for my drives.
I will gift it to you, right? Listen, password... my credit card information, it's all going to you. No, but I believe they won like a few awards for their audiobook production because they had like it reads like a screenplay. So all the roles are like fleshed out and
yeah.
But off track. But I have a soft spot for those Jedi who carry themselves in not a wholly evil kind of look.
It's not just a Sith power, the rule of 2. My power was all but absolute. Mm-hmm. Like there was decorum, there was honor, there was nobility.
Exactly. Big on the honor.
What do you think about Huang's... So Huang... So for those of you who haven't watched Rebels and or Clone Wars, Huang is the droid that has been around since post-High Republic.
He's a few thousand years old.
Oh, okay. But he is the droid that helps every Jedi youngling build their lightsaber. And what that means is he has an extensive knowledge of every lightsaber that has ever been built within the Order. Go ahead.
He was created around 25,000 BBY, 5 years after the Jedi Order was founded. I thought he was only like a few thousand, like maybe you get to the Old Republic kind of era, but that is old. How are you 75% original parts? over 25,000 years.
It's like people say now, like, oh, like look at all the original parts in this thing. Like they don't build them like they used to, but they also used to be screaming metal death traps. Like that's just how it is.
But, oh my god,
people still have their Hoover vacuums from back then, so or Dyson vacuums.
Yeah,
like,
that's fair, but oh my god.
So
also shout out David Tennant, who voices him.
Oh, he did voice him again.
Yeah, it's Tennant.
Okay, but he's how to me it was so awesome, and this is what really made Balin like I'm more excited for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is he sits there and goes, he had both these lightsabers were constructed in how I teach.
Yeah, down to the letter
to build a lightsaber. One I recognize, one I don't. And to me, it was like, once again, we're getting, no, this thing from the Jedi was really awesome.
Yeah.
And this is how you should learn how to construct a lightsaber, so you can feel it and it becomes yours, compared to, you know, how Ezra built his first one, which was uniquely his.
It's really cool.
But also it's...
Blaster saber, actually. I love that thing. Sorry.
I'm a little bummed that he went traditional.
I know, me too.
But to me, it was like, oh, this is a really cool... Like, once again, we're on the spectrum of gray between the Jedi and the Sith.
Yeah.
But go ahead. We've danced around it, and this is all still the first episode. Back to the fight scene.
Yeah, fight scene. Oh my goodness. Well, Sabine can hold her own. You can see some of the training that she got from Kanan and then later from Ahsoka. Obviously, she's not up to date on her...
Not practicing.
No, not at all. Holds her own. I mean, tries her best to hold her own anyway. Duel will last maybe like 5 minutes tops, though. As Ahsoka's like speeding to go save the day or try to save the day. And loses the duel. And I know Qui-Gon's out there raging because yet another Star Wars character gets a gut shot.
Oh yeah, they invented back to tanks 10 minutes after your battle with Darth Maul.
I sat there after that scene. Granted, Sabine's was pretty on the side, so I don't think there's a lot of
I think that's close to where the liver is.
Like right here.
Hang on.
It was. I think it was far enough on the side where, like, it didn't, hit anything super major, but it's still a gut shot. And like, poor Qui-Gon, man, this dude just. Ever since The Phantom Menace, so many people have been getting gut shots and walk away from it. But no, sister
gets it twice.
The most important Jedi Master that would have been the key to the whole next 15 years or so, gut shot, gone.
Immediately out, yeah.
Jesus. I feel for Qui-Gon all the time when I see stuff like that happen. And yeah, no, so loses it pretty handily, and then that's where the first episode ends. Knew she wasn't going to die because it is, I don't want to say plot armor. There's maybe like a little bit of like worry. Because I don't think you saw scenes of Sabine in the trailers past what we had seen her in episode 1.
No,
so shout out to trailer makers too. They're good with it.
Oh, I think really the only thing we saw of her in the trailers was like her with long hair and her on the speeder, but we didn't know why.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Mrs. Play checks her phone. I asked Mrs. Play, was Sabine stabbed anywhere important? She was a biologist.
Oh.
She would know.
No.
Other than the gut, like was there really anything there? But yeah, that went on. That fight happened, and I'm watching it the entire time. And I am sorry, you said the apprentice's name. I lost it.
Shin Hati.
Shin. I forget what Shin stands for in Japanese, but I'm pretty sure that they're going for I think it stands for new, if I'm not mistaken. Because Kiwami is awesome or extreme. So I think Shin is new. Anyway.
Well, see, you've always had a leg up on the Japanese stuff.
I just watch a lot of anime.
Get it? Because Shin
Godzilla, Shin.
Shin isn't like your shin.
Oh,
great. It didn't even land. All right.
Oh,
anyway.
a leg up! Oh, no, that was just... It's been a long day. That's good.
This is when I'm getting kicked out of the podcast.
No, this is my press. I love me a good pun. I got it. It almost felt like, because I think we're gonna see something Ahsoka's already gone through, and something because the ultimate is gonna be her and Sabine, right?
Mhm.
They're gonna be the two that have to fight, and it's gonna be, well, which apprentice is better, and does the Force matter?
Spoiler alert, I think it does. I mean, it should matter more, honestly.
I'll have a thing, but we're gonna save that for the end of the podcast. Because I was talking about Mrs. Play last night, and but we'll get to that. Sabine fights extra sloppy. She also isn't wearing any of her Mandalorian armor. Liver and intestines. You kind of need those. So the liver grows back. It's the future.
But you have Bacta. You have Bacta.
Yeah, Bacta.
So, anybody who's watched our Republic Commando Let's Play, Bacta, hell of a drug.
I owe you a nice long soak in the Bacta tank. This is great. But her one, she fought really sloppy, and Sabine, yes, she had the characteristics, but at no point during this was I like, she was never Sabine in the first episode, or she wasn't Sabine when we met her.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the long hair. Like, yeah, she was running away because she doesn't like public speaking.
Yeah,
but she wasn't running away to gallivant and have an adventure. She was running away to hide.
Yep.
And that feels very different from the Sabine we got to see in Rebels. Like, she ran away from a lot of her problems, and she admits that a lot, but she
grew from them.
Yeah, and eventually she comes back around to them, and things happen, but I think that is of vital importance that she ran to hide in this. So while, yes, she looked like Sabine, the actress did a great job giving me everything Sabine, she wasn't Sabine yet. Or she wasn't like the Sabine we knew.
Yeah.
And
a shell of whatever had happened between the end of Rebels and the start of Ahsoka had really shaken her to her core. And somebody like Sabine isn't the type to really mention that. She's in classic Mandalorian taste. They're not the most talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
Kind of people.
I don't know. So. Grogu, I freaking love my dad. I am. So, first episode, all in all, how'd you feel?
Oh, loved it. From how the show looks, it's beautiful. I can't say that enough. It was nice seeing, everything from like the Republic cruiser to how Ahsoka's own Jedi Star Cruiser looks, which was beautiful, by the way. It almost kind of felt less like a ship that was crafted during the Republic in the prequel era, and it almost kind of felt more High Republic-esque with had like a lot of florals on the floor. Things looked a lot cleaner. Mm-hmm. I think it's a T6, if I'm remembering my Star Wars ships correctly. I might not be. Something you see very commonly in not only the prequels but the Clone Wars as well.
I'm also a huge fan of like the rotating anything that rotates.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Mantis in that, like just the like, oh, it's up and then this is how it. Yeah, I love that.
Or even like the Slave One, or what do they call it now? The Fire Spray, right?
Oh, did it get its name changed?
It did, yeah.
I thought it got changed to Boba Fett's ship. I understand if they changed it from the Slave One. We don't need to like be like, oh, he's a slave trader.
Yeah.
The Fire Spray, yeah.
I think that's what they call it. I can't remember, but it is, it's Boba Fett's ship. Yeah, so the visuals of the show, really nice. I liked where the story's going. Mm-hmm. Anytime that you have an artifact that's getting dug up from something very old, or you need to go find something, count me, I'm in. I like finding things. Hera, who we didn't really touch much on up to this point, because I think she plays a way more of a present role in the second episode.
Yeah.
Loved Winstead's portrayal of her. I think maybe the only thing I would like to see is Hera was a lot more outspoken. I feel like the way that Winstead plays the character, she's more mellow. But that could also just be like I'm older now kind of.
I'm a parent. Like,
are you a parent? We don't know. I like how the show's being set up.
Yes.
I liked it a lot overall. I'm a little worried
Okay.
about the whole different galaxy thing because, and I said this last night when I was watching it, but this is how you get Chris Pratt in Star Wars, like Guardians of the Galaxy. That's how you get.
Technically, I know like Earth in what was it? Earth is the cradle of humanity for Star Wars, but a Sith picked it up and moved it to hide it or something and put it to another galaxy, and that's how it got here.
I've never heard of.
Yeah, that is like that's super bullshit. We couldn't talk about the Clone Wars legends. So like it's not. I don't think it's canon.
I doubt it's canon
in
honestly.
Current.
Yeah,
but
I don't think I would want it to be canon because for me, the premise you need to stick with Star Wars is that it's in a galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. I don't like the whole jumping galaxies part. Also, because you have the unknown regions of the current galaxy they're in that need to be explored more.
But I think that's being left up for Cal Kestis. That's being left up for
Thrawn.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Timothy Zahn's new Thrawn novels, by the way, are worth.
I've
worth
heard
a read.
they're good, and since you've read those, we'll get in. So we're going to end that. So you liked episode 1.
I did.
A little nervous.
A little nervous about where it's being taken. But if there's anything I know about Dave Filoni is that he's the biggest caretaker of everything Star Wars. So I trust him. Yeah. You know, there's very rare times where Filoni misses. So
I don't know. I think that's the thing. He gets told to do things, and then he has to have a fight with people, and that's a podcast for after this entire series is done. Okay, so we wrapped up on that. So episode 2. Oh, what do you think of the names of the episodes? By the way, let's go back because the episode was episode. Let me pull that up real quick, guys. In my Ahsoka.
Because I know the second one's Toil and Trouble, which I thought was funny.
I thought it was really good. So the first one was Master and Apprentice, which I thought was really cool. Rule of 2, we had 2 of those. And then Toil and Trouble, which I liked because we're seeing sorry guys, I'm actually really tired. We're seeing Morgan be like, what is her actual name?
It's Elspeth Morgan.
Is it Morgan or Morgan?
I thought it was just Morgan. I think Morgan's one of the characters from Rebels, the really ugly one. Ugh, that guy's disgusting.
Ahsoka. So there's a reason I'm asking that. Okay, there's just Morgan. Sorry for the brief silence, guys, because I'm just pulling 2 things together. So, if I was to guess right now, Jedi Knights we know is based off of Arthurian lore and a few other things. Morgana is King Arthur's sister, who's a witch, and is ultimately his downfall.
Oh.
So, her name being Morgan, and her being a Night Sister and using witchcraft, Toil and Trouble. If it's not the Bible, it's Shakespeare. Double Toil and Trouble. Yeah. So that's just what I was putting together. Go ahead. So we get to episode 2, and it is
surprise. Sabine's recovering.
She's fine. Got shots. Back to hell of a drug. Get help if you guys are on it. I have a crisis care hotline. I'll dispose of that for you too. You need someone to get it out of your life.
Oh my god.
But so,
anyways,
Sabine's recovering, and Ahsoka leaves her again. This time,
while she's recovering in the hospital.
To be fair, someone got away with a map that Sabine solved, and the droid figured out.
Yeah, I understand, but dang, come on. So yeah, opens up. Sabine's in the hospital. Ahsoka leaves to go back to the Lothal communications tower.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really cool that Ahsoka has the ability to feel events that had happened previously in like a distant kind of sense. I forget the exact.
It's a Force echo. It's Force sense.
Exactly. Yeah. There we go.
I want it to be because it just happened. Sabine was having a dream on it. She could feel the dream.
Yeah, which was super cool.
I do not want it to be that Ahsoka can just do this.
Could you imagine if Ahsoka was there for Anakin to feel his dreams? Just saying. Would have been nicer. But anyway. Maybe Ahsoka could have been there to be like, hey, I think Palpatine's evil. Anyway.
Hey, you're married, aren't you? Because there are some pretty explicit things in it. You're like Palpatine's evil, and I'm like, or is he thinking about his hot senator wife? Like, there are only two ways that's gonna go.
Anakin's a simple man. But yeah, so I thought the Force Echo was really cool.
I thought it was fun.
The fact that Ahsoka just kind of hedged a bet to think that, oh, maybe the droid's still there. I'm assuming.
How many were? It was like, how many were there?
There were two. Because in the first episode, Sabine shot the legs of the one that was holding her.
Yes.
And then ran for the...
I thought she shot him again.
Maybe shot him again, sure. But definitely not like a kill shot for a droid of that caliber.
Okay.
Like it's an HK kind of model. So obviously you really got to go for the head with them. So I thought it was cool seeing Ahsoka in the communications tower going through some of Sabine's stuff. And then the droid pops out. Makes such quick work of him. You know, I just love the line. And it's like, oh, I thought you'd still be here.
Yeah.
They never went to go back to pick up the droid?
No, they had what they wanted. I don't know why they would pick up the droid.
So that maybe they, wouldn't be tracked?
This is something I think we're really going to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is what is going to really change the way... I think Shin Hase is younger than we think. And I don't think she didn't fight in the Clone Wars.
Oh, no. She's young. She's like probably younger than Sabine, too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean...
I think she might be like 4 or 5 years younger than Sabine. So probably...
I'd say even more, maybe like 6 or 7. Like,
I don't know.
I'm thinking like growing up as the rebellion's being fought.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she doesn't look that old.
Being trained. She's being classically trained. But at her current power, even though she's probably very formidable, is not going to be anywhere near as strong as either Ahsoka or Sabine, had Sabine been fighting like as Sabine, like not this person who's just angry with a lightsaber wielding like a club. I did like the fact that it's like she didn't practice.
Nowhere near Ahsoka though. Like, Ahsoka as a duelist, I mean, took down Maul in single combat. I mean,
we're gonna get back to that. We're going to get
anyway.
back to that for the end of the episode because I'm going to say something and it is going to come across as blasphemous, but I want it to be heard out.
Anyway, yeah, stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, we'll keep your nails button at the end of the episode. Yeah, so I like the fact that Ahsoka leaves and she goes to Corellia.
Yeah, the conversations with Hera about Morgan Elsbeth's dealings during the
Empire.
Yeah, during the Empire. Obviously, they touch base, say that she was a close ally of Thrawn, and then it comes out that she had dealings on Corellia, which does not surprise me because whoever controls the galaxy controls Corellia at the time. So you have industry for the Empire, and then you had industry for the Republic afterward. Corellia is also subsequently, we saw Corellia first one in Solo, right?
Yeah, it was the first time we ever really saw Corellia.
Yeah, because I forget the adoring name that Hans called when he was younger. He's like a rat from
Yeah,
Corellia,
something like
like
that,
a
yeah.
street rat, basically. That entire sequence when we get to Corellia is one of my not only my favorite parts of the episode, but my favorite part about Star Wars.
Okay.
So, yeah, they go to Corellia. I love the fact that we get to see the Phantom. I love the fact that we get to see Chopper. More on him in a minute because love him.
Favorite little terrorist.
Oh my God, he just commits. You think R2 commits war crimes? Like Chopper does not care.
Yeah.
R2
defends himself.
Yeah.
Chopper's cold blooded.
Yeah, he's an OG. He's a gangster, honestly. No. So yeah, they get to Corellia, and I love the fact that they're looking into if Morgan Elsbeth's dealings were ever shut down. Which, who didn't? Like, you might want to make sure of this, like, of what's going on, and that's in this kind of aspect. But again, it plays into the New Republic's kind of cockiness of, we defeated the Empire, this is over, nobody would turn against us, we're it, we're him, you know.
I'm gonna say something right now.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota,
okay,
Mitsubishi,
yes.
Where
are you going with this? If this doesn't have the payoff I want, I'm gonna be...
Oh, it will.
Yes, they're cars. They're car companies.
They're car companies. What do you think they did during World War II?
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Guess what they still do? Guess what they're still like? They still make shit. Like, so to me, it wasn't a failing of the New Republic or the cockiness. It was the necessary evils. And when we see the one guy who's played by the loser from House, I love him. The chief guy of the area who's like guiding them around. He's like, I'm really busy. I'm a general. Yeah, fine. I can't argue with you. But
he's in House?
Yeah, he's in House.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's one of the doctors at House.
Oh.
They sit there and go, aren't you worried about like this? He goes, no one cares here. All we care is, how big is your pocketbook?
Yeah.
Going back to the cloners. So to me, it wasn't they're super arrogant. I think they didn't do a good job. They got lost in the shuffle, and the joy of the Empire was that everything was established. So the Empire was voted into power. But like so many other rebellions, and like this is a thing that like George Washington says, like, fighting a war is easy, but rebuilding after you win, and you have to think how much of it did they have to dismantle that would have been from the Republic. So,
well, that gets into my favorite part of the episode is that once again you shed light on what it's like to be an ordinary person in the galaxy, because it directly parallels what we go through on a daily basis as just regular citizens. Is that you're right. I mean, as long as you're being paid comfortably, you don't really care about the bigger political fight in your respective country, because as long as you can make it, like, you're more focused on making ends meet
and dealing with my HOA.
Yeah.
That's something that immediately
bastards.
Yeah.
And it was touched on really well in the Bad Batch, when it shed light on some of the first human stormtroopers, is that, the Empire is giving you, you're being well paid, you're getting basically space healthcare, and it's a stable job for you and your family. Like, stormtroopers aren't inherently evil. They're just trying to make a living, for them, their family.
I mean, it was tied up again in Rebels, where it's like, hey,
it was also tied up in
Mandalorian.
No, Robot Chicken too. If you've watched the Star Wars Robot Chicken episodes, I think it was like Dave the Stormtrooper. He brings his daughter to work. Yeah. Anyway,
I have a son who'd be about your age now.
But that was what I really loved seeing, and you're right. That's in that part of the galaxy, the only thing that matters is how big your pocketbook is. And when he says, his, like, where do your loyalties lie? He's like, my loyalties are to my investors,
my shareholders. Yeah.
That's he also dropped the perfect line of you'll find, former Imperials at every level of the New Republic government, which is so unsettling.
Yeah.
But it also really goes to show why something like the First Order was allowed to rise with very minimal resistance. I mean, you had like Leia sounding the alarm, like, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't,
Yeah.
we should probably deal with this." And it also goes to show, wasn't it dropped in the episode 2 that like Mon Mothma had demilitarized like 90% of the Republic right after the Battle of Jakku? I don't know if it was explicitly said in Ahsoka, but
something happened.
But that's how it happens. Is that Mon Mothma makes peace with the Imperials after the Battle of Jakku, allows worlds to stay under Imperial control if they want to. The only stipulation is that those Imperial worlds are not supposed to have a military of any sort.
Yeah.
And then she basically goes and says, crisis averted. Let's just go ahead and demilitarize all this stuff that we, this new republic so that we can start fresh and not have to, restore the galaxy to what it was like just before the Clone Wars, which is a big mistake doing something like that so early on.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, we think about how big our country is, and we think about like, okay, we won the battle because so going, this is American history, guys, United States history. Battle was fought in the Chesapeake. The British were routed, but there were still battles happening well after.
After the Battle of Yorktown and the
Battle of Yorktown,
yeah,
because in South Carolina, like, people were still dying because word hadn't got to them yet.
Yep,
and it's
big galaxy.
When you get there, like, what are you gonna do? You're right. I think some of this is just we've kind of just fought 2 major wars back to back. So you did World War I and then went right to World War II almost immediately after. And a lot of people, I was at PAX and someone was explaining how much they hated the idea of the First Order. And I was like, well, I don't understand what you hate about it. You have a bunch of guys in a beer house who are all veterans of World War I talking about, and then some guy comes up and starts like chanting really loud, talking some serious smack, and it gets beaten down there because, people go, we're going to guard this place, and they go and tell the police, and the police suppress that. But that same guy now has a bit of a following, and now he runs elected for for chancellor, and now you have Nazi Germany, and that's a very short, abbreviated version of that, guys. But
Hitler's rise to power.
Yeah, Hitler's rise to power. So yeah, it makes sense, the First Order, and then the fact that it's like we're also still seeing, you're right, people don't care. Like, I care about what affects me. What's my planet doing? Are they raising taxes? Can I afford to feed my children?
Yeah,
and we get that in the Clone Wars during the what was Greedo?
Oh, Rodian.
I was about to say Ryloth, that's not right. But the Rodian arc, where it's like, I joined the Separatists because I've asked you all for help, and I haven't gotten it. They're offering me some help.
Yep.
So yeah, and I'm glad that that's still carrying over, because that is what matters. Back to the story.
Yeah. So as they're inspecting Morgan Elsbeth's former holdings, Hera is overlooking the shiving yard, and she notices this huge hyperdrive from a super star destroyer.
Yeah.
And for those people who don't know what a super star destroyer is, think Darth Vader's flagship in Return of the Jedi. That thing is huge,
especially compared to the other star destroyers.
Yeah,
like because those things, and it's fast too, because that's what Han Solo brags the Millennium Falcon can do. It can run more or less time and more distance than those big ships, which have larger engines that are designed to chase after craft like his.
Yeah, and so she's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing with this? Because the New Republic's not building anything this big." And so the guy's like, "Oh, well, that's weird." And then so like he brings up like the files, and it's classified. And Hera's like, "Unclassified. I'm a general. Nothing's classified to me. I classified. And then it gives it to the protocol droid, and then Ahsoka, adds on to that, like, oh, like, have you seen any, like, something along the lines of, like, oh, have you seen any HK droids? And the protocol droid's like, hey, wait a minute, that droid is the one who completed me, prevented me from completing my task. I thought that was very protocol droidy.
Yeah,
too.
like, I couldn't do it because of him. Like, fuck that guy.
And then comes out, and they're like, really? Like, where's this droid now? Or, like, when did this happen? It's like, oh, 5 rotations ago, which is pretty recent. And the protocol droid's like, I had to stop what I was doing because he had special clearance. And Hera and Ahsoka were both like, special clearance?
Yeah.
Like, how does this go? And in the background, you can see one of the operators in the control room of the shipyard. It's like getting antsy, and you can just tell he's about to.
It's about to pop off.
Yeah, which it does. He's like, for the Empire. Ahsoka's like, I don't think so. Why would you even try? Like, with it, people obviously aren't used to being around Force users. So come to find out that, these are people who are still working for the Empire. Their loyalty stayed with the Empire, even though the New Republic was like, yeah, no, they're loyal to us now. Like, they wouldn't do anything like that. And that's the reality of the galaxy at this point.
We won. We did the thing. We stopped the evil Emperor. We stopped the Empire. We took down, Death Stars that could blow up planets, which, that was the whole point of them, was like, fear of this battle station will keep everyone in line. And it's also kind of the idea of, like, I had this great job in the Empire, and you took that away from me.
Yeah.
Like, sure, it was evil, but I was okay, and yeah.
Well, and all the while this is happening, back at the hospital where, where Sabine and Huang are relaxing, chilling, having a nice time. Yeah, kicking it. He is being that very pushy but not pushy, like almost like an elder statesman, because that's what he is. He's like, oh, like, it's your lightsaber, and Sabine's like, oh, it's Ezra's lightsaber. It's like, no, you modified it. It's yours now.
It's yours.
Yeah. Like, are you keeping up on your training? Obviously not. And we get more info on this whole master and apprentice dynamic between Ahsoka and Sabine. And Huang's like, out of all of the Force users I've ever seen in my 25,000 years, you fall short of literally all of them. Which is like, oh my God, 25,000 years worth of Jedi coming through, and you can't even be better than one. And that's because, guys, she's not Force sensitive. And if she is, it's the tiniest of metrics,
Yeah,
like, the Force is in everybody, sure, but that doesn't make you Force sensitive.
I'm going to use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
That's not how the Force works.
The Force flows through everything. That's still not how the Force works. Like, yes, but no. Feels like from Atlantis. I'm a doctor, but not that kind of a doctor. More of a doctor.
And I think that was a perfect way to describe Sabine. And I think all of the Force baiting that was in the trailers, because, oh God, it was so much of it. I remember the trailer dropping for Ahsoka, and everybody's like, she's not Force sensitive. Yeah, she's not. They wanted you to think about it just to get you to talk about it. I think that was a perfect way to describe Sabine and, like, what she is. And then also the point you touched on earlier, what Ahsoka thinks the Jedi are and should be.
Huang also agrees with Ahsoka.
Yeah, which is cool.
And yeah, that's because that was the thing. Like, I was expecting.
He's still very old Jedi protocol-y there, though. Still, it's kind of hard to change.
He is. He's like, it's programming. Like, and I like that he blames being stubborn on that. But it's the fact that Huang also, he doesn't discount her. He's like, yeah, you're not. You're literally lacking than every other
you
Jedi.
Suck. You suck in that regard, sure, but
it doesn't make you not a Jedi.
Yeah.
Which I think it kind of harkens back to, like, our childhood age. Like, you think I could grow up and if I eat all my vegetables, I could use the Force? Your parents are like, yeah, if you'll fucking eat your vegetables and stop talking about Star Wars, sure, go ahead and do this. But
the things parents would say to negotiate eating your vegetables.
Just eat your vegetables. But I thought that was such an affirming moment, because Huang's like, hey, you're not practicing. Yeah, Ahsoka is at fault for some of this, but you're also equally at fault.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say you can't. I was almost expecting him to be like, I told her that you didn't have it. But I was like, that is not a nurturing teacher. Like any teacher who sits there and like tries to goad you into being better, like pushing you and maybe like, you know, there's a healthy kind of way to push somebody that is a little bit like have them prove that to you because they're going to prove it to themselves too.
Yeah.
But he does it in such a nurturing way where he's like, yeah, you don't have any of that, but I'm not going to discount you. I'm not going to say you can't be a Jedi or whatever Ahsoka will be called.
Whatever it's going toward, yeah.
Yeah.
And it also goes to say it touches on their relationship. And it's like, well, Ahsoka walked away from me. And it's like, well, I'm blanking on the exact words that Huyang used, but essentially it's like, well, you guys are both stubborn and hard-headed. And I think Hera had said it at some point too. It's like, well, that's what made it work until it didn't.
Yeah.
But I think with Huyang's conversation with Sabine in that hospital room, it was a lot of healing in the relationship. And Sabine starts to see her value to the whole thing again. Whereas when we first see Sabine in the first episode, it's like, well, you walked away from me, master. Like, she doesn't really see the point of all of it, or like, this is never going to work between you and I. But by the time the second episode comes and she has these conversations with Huyang, she really starts to see that, no, like, I do add value to this. I need to be here for her. Like, we need to make this work, all for the sake of the bigger picture, for finding Ezra, for stopping a war, all of that. And so as Ahsoka's about to throw down with more droids and a Sith Inquisitor, Merrick, right? Was the Sith Inquisitor's name?
I don't remember.
I think it was Marok. Marok, I think is how you.
Yeah, it's like he never failed. So here's the deal. He gets sent off to this planet. Because Elizabeth goes send him to Corellia to deal with Ahsoka. See that he doesn't fail, and he goes, oh, he never does. But it brings up this question of the Inquisitors were started because of Order 66. Like, you took old Jedi who were now partially trained, competent in the Force, competent with the lightsaber.
Or even younger Force-sensitive people who were then corrupted.
Yeah. And
Sidious loves doing that.
You turn them into Inquisitors to not violate the rule of two. And two,
to get the dirty work done, to make sure all these Jedi are hunted down and destroyed.
They're expendable. They're terrifying. You have... And they all are, like, you see them with the helmets, like, you all could be Darth Vader, the black, who comes in until he does in Kenobi, and you're like, fuck. So that was fantastic, but it was once again like, I want to know how you got here.
Yeah, I think if I had to put my money on it, he is almost playing in the capacity of a bounty hunter. Because if you think about it, Vader's gone, the Emperor's gone, the Emperor's currently not available. Somehow Palpatine returned. Well, he's not returned yet, so he's gone in this piece of the galaxy for the moment, anyway. So if I had to guess, this is a Sith Inquisitor that probably turned to like becoming like a mercenary or a bounty hunter or some role to fill, because I think Baylan said the same thing, is that Morgan paid him handsomely for his help in this whole
I cost a lot, but I'm a Jedi, I'm going to win.
And so I think that's kind of in the same vein of the Sith Inquisitor being there, which seeing the fight between him and Ahsoka was really cool. Ahsoka was wiping the floor with him, though. Yeah,
so and also taking on an HK, like, not just an assassin droid, like an HK model, which is still going to be better than the guards with Dooku.
Oh, yeah.
And the assassin droid from that. Now, I'm going to start to get to, like, a lot of people did not like the sequel trilogy, which follows the Dark Empire books, which aren't particularly good.
No.
Because it's the cloning of the Emperor. It's the Emperor's starship getting taken over by pirates. It's a bunch of other things. Heir to the Empire, I think
those books were a mess.
All of them, yeah.
It was a lot to get through, and I'm one of the people that really thought that when Disney did take over Star Wars, that making a whole bunch of things not canon beforehand was the only way forward. For how things were going to work in there.
And now you can take the stories, flush them out, and then get it all cohesive. So why we have things?
Yeah, and you can pick and choose, so that way you can filter out what was kind of sucky and what is great. But yeah, no.
I think because there's been a very key thing here, because you have said Elizabeth was loyal to the Empire,
was an ally of Thrawn,
and loyal to Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I'm gonna say: in the original Heir to the Empire, Balin was set to guard a place by Thrawn, and I don't think was ever relieved. And when he comes back and kind of sees what's happened, because he's just been secluded and like stuck on a planet, he's a little like, I don't think they want to do that, because he knows about the Clone Wars, so he probably knows about the Empire. I think what they're doing now is they're setting up secret apprentices, but it's not the Emperor or Darth Vader having 101 secret apprentices for everything. Instead, they're like, I would almost say Thrawn had his own like contingent of loyal Inquisitors,
Force users,
Balin, because he's like,
that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Thrawn's like
he's a massive genius.
Yeah, and he is my favorite villain. I think across anything, he's scary.
I barely see him as a villain. I see him as being on the opposite side of the people that we're rooting for.
Yeah, fair.
But I don't see him as a villain.
I mean, and granted, his whole goal, even being here, is to make sure that the Chiss ascendancy is safe. So, like, that's, I know you haven't read like the Thrawn books, but
is his race the Chiss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blue. Yeah.
Keep going. I'm trying to.
But yeah, it's been a while since I need to touch up on those books, but essentially how it goes, the entire reason why Thrawn's in the Empire is that he's essentially seeking allies to help the Chiss ascendancy in the fight against another species in the unknown regions. Like, that's how it goes. Like, so above all else, his loyalty is to his people, not the Emperor.
Yes.
Not the Empire. Not anything in the galaxy that we know and love. In our part of the galaxy that we know and love. It's to his people, to his culture, all that jazz. So I think it would make perfect sense for him having a whole bunch of these people on the side. So, Morgan Elsbeth, maybe secret apprentices on Thrawn's side, people who serve him and only him. That makes... I would almost say that if it's not like that, I would be confused. So
and it's only the reason I'm saying that is because like the Inquisitors, because if I'm not mistaken, didn't Vader, when the Inquisitors really done most of their job, he then turned around and was like, "Now y'all got to go."
Yeah. Thanks for doing all this stuff for us.
And none of you are going to be anywhere near as strong as I am.
No.
So yeah, there's that. But yeah, Corellia happens. The ship that launched with the giant hyperdrive is getting away. Hera, and now we get to see Chopper for the second time.
Oh God, yeah.
The thing I love about Chopper,
that old dingbat,
compared to R2, is you know what Chopper's saying every time.
Oh yeah.
Did you move my stuff? Like, no, I didn't move your stuff. And Nicole's like the droid's like, because it says like droid beeping, and it's like, did you move my stuff? And I'm like, I knew he asked, did you move my stuff?
He's always been like that, because it's Filoni who voices Chopper, right?
Is it?
I'm 95% sure. Yeah, no, it is Dave Filoni that voices Chopper.
I'm gonna double check that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the back and forth with Hera.
No, you're right.
The back and forth with Hera and Chopper. I was like, yeah, did you move my stuff? No, I didn't move your stuff. It's like, did you check behind, like, under the backup battery? He's like, oh,
Found it.
Yeah. And then Hera's like, hey, don't miss this time. And it's like, yeah, that's Chopper is for those who need a reason to watch Rebels. Chopper committing war crimes and being a general nuisance is enough reason to watch the show. He's a menace. And also Hera's piloting is on display. And I just thought of this entire time, it's like a fighter being behind like a bomber trying to shoot it down.
Yeah.
Hera's not even concerned. And I would be so mad if I were like one of the turret pilots, like one of the turret gunners on that ship, because you just keep trying to shoot this ship. And she's just doing like barrel rolls, just like around the entire thing, following it up to space. Like, you can't land one shot on the Phantom. Not one.
I like the fact that they're lasers that are being fired, but they're still exploding like flak.
Yeah.
Like this makes no sense in anything, especially since we know they have missiles.
Yeah, Chopper has like such a nice throw. I don't know how the ship didn't think that they were going to put a tracker on him with the way that like they navigated around him. Like, oh, like we got here scot-free. They actually get back to the planet that Morgan Elsbeth is on with Balin, and they're like they won't find us here. It's like, how can you be certain? I was like, you guys didn't check the ship or the hyperdrive to look for a tracker?
And that's when Balin actually looks into the future and goes, like, her presence in the Force is elusive, but you know her
resolve is
everywhere, ever present, or whatever. How did you feel? So Mrs. Play and I had differing opinions on this. I saw a giant hyperdrive space ring and was like, fuck yeah, we need to take a trip across galaxies.
Yeah.
We need a hyperdrive engine for this again.
That thing was massive.
Mrs. Play's like, can the Empire do anything else but build another bigger thing? And I was like, but you're not. Look,
you're not wrong.
They only did it once, and then they made a bunch of smaller ones. And people were mad at that. So pick.
Well,
pick
you
one.
are talking about the Empire that got their first Death Star blown up, and then built a bigger Death Star 2.
Was it bigger?
It was bigger,
or so it was supposed to be bigger, whatever it was.
No, it was way bigger.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean...
But what if we put, instead of a vent that's small, we put a Millennium Falcon-sized hole in this?
Well, they weren't done building it.
That's a dorkly... It's the guy who builds the Death Star. We'll go into that later. Go ahead.
I thought it was really cool. I was like, oh my god, that thing is huge. They really... how do people keep hiding these kind of projects around the galaxy?
It's space. How many unnamed rocks do people just not live around? Or is
Fair.
like... I imagine that a planet or a solar system in the Star Wars galaxy is the equivalent of, no, that's that spooky street that you don't go on because the creepy lady died there. Okay.
I was gonna say, yeah, that Death Star 2 is pretty huge. But yeah, no, you're right. I think we're taking a fun little trip here. Where do you see the next episode of Ahsoka going?
So it's going to be the fight on that planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then... I think it's going to be a slight team-up. Because Thrawn and Ezra have to be together.
Yeah.
I think... So it's the... Do you know about the Abyss yet in Jedi Survivors?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So
Thanks for not spoiling me.
You're good.
In front of all the people.
You're welcome.
I would have been sad.
Where is Zeb's planet? The new...
Oh, the new... Oh, what do you call this planet? It's in the unknown regions.
It's in the unknown regions.
Yeah.
So originally, and I could be wrong, so I was double checking this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was in Heir to the Empire, when we learned about Thrawn and the ascendancy of the Chiss, there was another race known as the Nogri, or Nogri, Noghri. And they were like supposed to be the original, if you remember from Star Wars, Republic Galaxy, not Galaxy, is the other one. What's the other new one?
The Old Republic.
The Old Republic. You learned that the Sith was a race.
Yeah.
That was wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
This was supposed to be another alien race that was... They were going to be the Sith. And they were going to be the Sith race.
Yeah.
But I think that's the war the Chiss are fighting. And I'm wondering if a galaxy far, far away is where the Zepho came from, where all the like big Force sensitive that were like so in touch with the Force that they branched out to like, be gods among mortals. So I'm thinking that they're going to go there and back, and it's going to be like, we don't know what's out there. We kind of like this is what everything was, and the series is gonna. It's going to stop because it's like the realm between, if I had to guess, is going to be kind of destroyed, and there won't be paths to it because that's the only other way they could get to this galaxy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's how hyperdrive, hyperspace works. Is that before you had computers to guide you along hyperlane routes, back in the day, you had to have somebody who's force sensitive to guide you to two different like star systems. Okay. Like that's how it worked back in the day before
computers.
Yeah, before they had the means to travel. Yeah,
space computers.
That is a great hypothesis, honestly.
Yeah,
is that they're going to go here and they're not going to be able to get they're not going to go back. Like they're not going to be able to get back to that galaxy once they return because of some event that happens, which I think would be super cool. But you also, so I want to ask you a few questions.
Go ahead.
Along the lines of the few, the 2 episodes that we watched. One we already touched on, like what the hell, Hera? Where's Jace? Where's your kid?
Yeah.
And also, were you bummed out that Kanan was not mentioned? And do you think we're gonna get Kanan's name dropped at some point?
I think we're gonna get Kanan's name dropped. I don't think it is gonna be mentioned because I think what they're gonna. I would be hard pressed to not see Zeb show up, considering Zeb was in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And Steve Bloom was still Zeb.
Mm-hmm.
And that man can play whoever he wants.
Yeah.
I would almost... I don't know if Hera will come with them, or if they'll kind of get the band back together, and instead we might learn that... Why did I think of this sooner?
Oh?
What's also being built at this time?
Starkiller Base.
What's also being built at this time?
All of the Emperor's like Exegol Star Destroyers and stuff like that?
Nope. The new Jedi Order.
Okay, well, so no, hold on. That was my second question. When Ahsoka and Huyang are talking in the first episode, and Ahsoka's like, the Jedi Order's extinct. I'm sitting there, it's like, you've met Luke. He's trying to rebuild the Order. It's not extinct.
I don't think Luke knows what kind of order it is, and it's going to be a new Jedi Order. I think it's the old one is dead. The old one will never come back.
But that doesn't make sense because in the sequel trilogy, he, or I guess the new trilogy, whatever you want to call it, but sequel trilogy, duh. Anyway, he fails for all the same reasons, essentially.
Yeah.
So why would you not? That gives me the big indication that he tried to build the same Jedi Order and failed. So,
and that's what I really think they're alluding to.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the difference here with, I think, Ahsoka, where Ahsoka's like, I'm not a Jedi, because she's like, I'm not going to stick around and help train younglings. She says this will train a new generation.
Yeah.
I don't think she's wrong. I think it will be, but it's going to have all the same follies. I think what we're going to see with Ahsoka is, no, the Jedi needs to be an ideal and a practice.
Not an order.
Not an elitist, like, kidnapping Force-sensitive thing. It should be volunteer. It should be, like, strictly, like, selective about it.
Yeah.
But the person needs to want to do it. How did you feel? All right, we're going to ask you a question.
Oh, hey, whoa, hey. Oh, how the turntables
turn.
Anyway, yeah, go for it.
Morgan asked Balin sentimentality. He goes, "Oh, it would be a shame to kill. It'll be a shame to kill Ahsoka, as there are so few Jedi left."
Yes.
And she goes, "Sentimentality," and he goes, "Truth." How did that make you feel?
It hurt a little bit. He's right, though. I mean, the Jedi used to be an order of over 10,000 knights strong, and then, they got dwindled down through the Clone Wars, and then they got Order 66, and then after that, the survivors who somehow managed to survive that got purged. So, I mean, it is the truth. I don't think that Balon has the balls to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think... One, also, I don't think Balon, stands a chance against Ahsoka because... no offense, Ahsoka Tano's a excellent duelist who was drilled so hard by Anakin, the greatest Jedi to ever live, and that is not my words. It's Dave Filoni's words. It's also George Lucas's words.
Yeah.
So to think that he could kill Ahsoka after all this time, the only one who could kill Ahsoka was Vader, and Vader technically did.
Yes.
Until Ezra world between worlds, this whole thing. It hurt hearing it, though, honestly. While I wasn't a fan of the Jedi leading up to Order 66 because their order had become so flawed, I think there were still a lot of good ones.
Mm-hmm.
But how did it make you feel?
One, I like the fact that they're acknowledging that there are few left, but few doesn't mean few is not like
3.
Yeah, few could be like, okay, we're 10,000 strong, and now let's say that there are 800. I'd say they're probably under 1,000.
Oh, I don't think they're anywhere close to 800. I think for what we know, Jedi's also, you got to define the term. Are we talking Jedi Knights or are we talking just Padawans, youngling? Does would Cal Kestis fall under that umbrella despite barely being a Padawan when the order fell?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm counting Jedi, anyone who has any classical training.
So including younglings who shut themselves off from the Force to not get got by the Empire.
Yes.
I don't think it'd be 800 still. I think you're somewhere in the two, maybe if you're lucky 200.
I'm thinking it's a big galaxy. That's why I'm going with 800 because
that's fair.
So, Asajj Ventress, right? She was a Force-sensitive child that was just trained as a Jedi. I would count her because she was classically trained in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm also thinking of anyone else who did that.
Oh, so technically, you're including Inquisitors under this umbrella then, by that logic.
Yes, I'm going to include Inquisitors.
I still think it's a small number. Even Ahsoka herself said something like it. She said there's so few people in the galaxy who can wield the Force now. She said that in the first episode when they were discussing the hologram of Balon and Shin.
I think wield the Force, though, and Jedi are very different.
I don't think they are.
Just because I can get angry and I can throw my hands and push somebody back, I would not say I'm wielding the Force.
I think you are because
I think wielding the Force implies control.
It's
semantics.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
I'm saying Jedi is anyone who's classically trained, large galaxy, 800 comfortable.
Where are you going with this, though?
I think what this is going to lead us to, and what I would be happy with, after the High Republic and after the First Order, because I think the First Order is going to be contained. I think it's going to be it's going to be an area of the galaxy where it could do the most damage. It's going to kind of be because now it went from World War I, World War II, and now we're going to go directly to Civil War. How close are the two capitals in the United States? They were right next to each other.
100 miles.
Yeah. So I think that's what I think that the First Order happening isn't going to be in that big of a space, especially when we talk about Luke just fucked off somewhere and no one could figure out where it was.
Classic Luke.
Yeah. So I'm expecting more stories that are isolated pockets of a different kind of Jedi.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I also think Ahsoka is going to do a lot of great work propping up the sequels because if you think about it, I really do hope that the kids of today that are growing up with these new Star Wars movies, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, have the effect of how the prequels have aged. Mm-hmm. Because when you know this more than I because you're just slightly older than me, slightly.
It's I'm okay with my age.
You lived through more of the 90s than I did.
I did. Through all of the 90s, you could say.
Yeah, well, you were. Yeah, okay. But you got to witness firsthand the hatred of how the prequels were received. Which, heck, the people who sent death threats to actors in those days, like what? Okay, you
Swifties,
weirdos.
some of y'all need to calm down too.
Yeah, exactly. Chill out for a second. But a lot of that same hate is present with the sequel trilogy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope that in 15, 20 years, people are going to look back on those movies with, like the rose colored goggles.
Like rose colored glasses, yeah.
Yeah. With like the nostalgic I hope the nostalgia kind of feeds into it. Mm-hmm. But also, I think that with all of the Star Wars content coming out, it's all propping up the sequel trilogy to give the context that it really needed in the movies. Especially, I don't have an issue with the first two movies of the sequels. My issue squarely rests with the pacing,
the sprint of the
cuts, movie. All of that. I think they really
it should have been like a 4-movie set.
4-movie set, or you really should have taken your time with the last one. But also, that's what happens when you have different directors for the 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just messy overall job by Disney. But I mean, they've had some hits, they've had some misses. It happens. But yeah, that's where I'd like to see Ahsoka take us. Is I want more context, but also I think this is all leading up into Dave Filoni's super movie, Avengers level movie.
Yeah, everyone needs to come together to. So I'm starting to think if they go to the other galaxy and there's another thing happening there, another it's a galaxy level threat. Yeah. I could see that also leading to, well, if all these people knew this, how'd the First Order happen? Well, when all of because I'm imagining every other Jedi thing, the Acolyte, everything else that we get is going to converge over in this part of the galaxy, and the sequels are going to happen over here. And
that is a great, that's a great hypothesis too.
That would explain how did we get here?
Yeah, why was this allowed to happen? Well, it's because Luke fucked off into another part of the galaxy. Nobody could find him.
Yep.
All the while, Ahsoka and Sabine uncover this whole thing happening in this other galaxy.
He's training people.
Well, still, okay. But, the whole fall of his orders, it's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of that's happening. But then you have, as you said, a galaxy-level threat that everybody has to come together, converge to take care of. And while they're all taking care of that, Palps is just in the unknown regions, cloning myself, building up my new Sith Empire. Nobody look over here.
Found Hexagol. Gonna use the Starforge. Don't pay attention to the guy over here.
No Jedi ever went back to Ilum, though. No Jedi ever realized what they were doing to that poor planet. Ilum got done so dirty. That is the big thing I really
Ilum
hate.
Was the planet.
It was. Yeah. It 100% was.
And if you would have just said Starforge, there are older things, better. You could have all you had to do was say Starforge. And I think people
didn't have to kill such a sacred planet, though, man. Come on.
Oh wait, Ilum. No, Ilum was where they got their.
Yeah, that is where Starkiller Base is. That's what Ilum was. Did you not know this?
No.
Yeah. Heartbreaking, right?
But it was well, it makes sense to get the Kyber crystals if they naturally.
Yep. Yeah. Hate to see it.
Good news is they exist in other places, but still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk about killing the remnants of the Jedi. You didn't have to.
Yeah.
Carve out a Kyber crystal planet, for Christ's sakes, but okay.
I'm gonna say probably one of the most sacrilege things.
Okay.
Anakin.
Oh, is this what you were building to? Oh,
yep.
Great.
Anakin. Greatest Jedi ever.
Yep.
I'm gonna pick and choose because I know Freddie Prinze Jr. and I have we have our disagreements, and he's the Force chooses. As the Jedi dwindle, the next generation of Jedi is stronger because the Force needs to build it back out. So we get Jedi twins, the son of Anakin and technically Darth Vader, the strongest Jedi, best Jedi that there ever was.
So you're saying Luke has that title, not Anakin?
No. I would say Luke, in raw potential, is one of the strongest Force wielders to ever exist. See it killing the Purge troopers by crushing them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have some Beskar armor on them.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So we're going to say Luke is really strong.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, no.
4 out of 5 times in a fight, Luke in his prime would lose to Ahsoka now, even though she's also older than him and not in her prime. 4 out of 5 times, I'm gonna say Luke would have a lucky chance where he would like Mace Windu it on a whim and like grab her and crush her and kill her. But I'm saying 4 out of 5 times Ahsoka wins.
How did you show me your thinking to arrive at this point?
Luke can use the Force, but he can only really use the basics. The Force for Luke is literally lifting rocks. Exhibit A, Yoda. What is he doing when he's training with Yoda? Balancing on his hands and lifting rocks. He's starting to learn how to use the Force as an ally in more intricate ways.
Mm-hmm.
However, what do we really see him use? He uses Force Choke, Force Grab, Force Push.
Yep.
Albeit that's all that you need. However, let's go to Ahsoka. Ahsoka, who had the full training classically of a Jedi Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, more than Luke got.
Fair.
And Anakin, who we all said who everyone agrees is the best Jedi to have ever lived. I think Ahsoka, with all of her years of experience, not being as strong as Luke,
and we're talking about set in the date of Ahsoka like the show Ahsoka happening. That Ahsoka, right there.
That Ahsoka versus Return of the Jedi.
Nope.
Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker.
Okay, that's so not fair then, because you have to take Luke at the point when Ahsoka happens as well. Because
fine. I still think it would happen 4 out of 5 times Ahsoka would win.
Did you ever play the Battlefront 2 campaign?
I did not.
Have you seen it?
Parts of it. I have it downloaded. Maybe the next thing that we go to. After we do Jade Empire, we'll do that. So you can.
I've really been enjoying Jade Empire a lot, especially our last playthrough of it. But anyway, Luke around the time, Operation Cinder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Battlefront 2's campaign focuses around Operation Cinder and like the fight to stop it, which leads up to the Battle of Jakku, obviously. Luke makes an appearance in that campaign, and you should play it.
Okay, we'll play it next.
I really think I'll have to go into the comics to really piece together what Luke is doing between Return of the Jedi and the Ahsoka series. Like I know he does start his order, and we see him in The Mandalorian, doing the foundational part of all that jazz.
He is stronger,
but he goes on a quest to recover essentially every bit of Jedi, like the text, the information that he can. Like he goes on an artifact hunt essentially. And I think what he would learn from these artifacts would make him more powerful. But maybe we turn this into a bonus podcast of some sort where we bring it to court.
Okay.
And you defend Ahsoka, I defend Luke. We go about this. I can't. You're going down a path I cannot follow. What are you going to force choke me now? On a lava planet? While I'm pregnant?
With our kids?
Cannot believe you. Who's going to be Obi-Wan sitting in his cat pose?
Nicole would have to be Obi-Wan Kenobi in this. I'm sure she's very confused.
With his thighs all out and everything. Hands on his hips.
That sounds like my wife. All right. So since we are at the 2-hour mark, so this covers 2, so you guys get a bonus extra long podcast. Thank you guys for hanging out for this one. How did you feel about episode 2?
Oh, I loved it. I think you got a lot of the classic George Lucas political intrigue. Great job displaying what the galaxy at large going through. was really cool. I think I'm really excited for this show. I think it has all of the classical traits that make Star Wars great. Filoni, of course, did great callbacks to a lot of what was in the original trilogy, some in the prequels too. To like, he picks and chooses what to put in, what to keep out. Some scenes being closer to others.
M counts.
Don't bring the Minotaurians into this. I'm very, very excited, and I think it's on the same level of excitement for Andor. When Andor was coming out, we didn't get to touch on Andor a lot together.
Really
not publicly anyway, because you and I have different viewpoints of Rogue One.
Rogue One is better for me now,
which is good.
Yeah,
I'm glad you've seen.
It should be.
I'm glad you've seen the light,
Donnie Yen.
But when Andor was premiering, Wednesdays were my favorite day of the week, just because I got to go home, eat dinner, watch Andor, because the show was so beautifully created, for everything from the score to the optics of it, but the character building. It did a really great job showing the rebellion from the viewpoint of the everyday galactic citizen, or in this case, like Andor's viewpoint, and like how he was brought up and what he believes in. Beautiful show. Slam dunk by Disney. I can't wait for the second season of Andor. And I really think that Ahsoka is doing that for me too, because as somebody who's watched practically every Star Wars thing that's come out, and somebody who loved the hell out of Rebels, I'm getting the characters I know and love going through a piece of like a time period of the galaxy that is not explored in the big picture way yet. Like obviously, like the Mandalorian is happening in this time period as well, but that's focusing more on like the Mandalorian side of things.
Yeah, the rebellion is not, the Republic's not the only thing building.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mandalorian is rebuilding.
Yeah, Mandalorian's reuniting, all that jazz.
I think we'd have an entire podcast just talking about the rebuilding of the Republic versus Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I am just going to call this now in our first episode here, but Ezra is definitely a prisoner of Thrawn's. I think the table was totally turned whenever they got to whatever planet, and that he's somehow a prisoner of Thrawn's.
I think it's going to be it's not the prisoner's dilemma. There's a special dilemma where it's like you're set to guard one person and you need to guard this person because if they get out, there's a great evil.
Right? Oh, you think he's guarding Thrawn? You think he's like a...
So Thrawn might be the captive, but Ezra's the prisoner because he's stuck there too.
Fair.
So they're neither one of them are, and I think that's where it's going to lead to.
Figures. I finally start liking Ezra as a character, and he gets teleported into space basically by whales, giant whales. The Purgil are really cool, by the way.
They are.
Yeah.
And I love the heralds to them.
Yeah. I love that they had a small cameo in Mandalorian. When
yeah, just going through hyperspace lanes.
I was like, sweet.
Also,
giant whales, love it.
Little terrifying. Like
that there are giant whales while you're traveling. Yeah.
And it's like, well, do they follow? Unless they're saying, well, we mapped it out. Like old school, they mapped it out based on their lanes.
Well, this is just one technical thing before we go. But in the original trilogy, Han essentially said that like you materialize, like the way like you immaterialize when you're in hyperspace. That way, like you don't you come out of hyperspace and materialize into like a star or a sun or something.
I think
like
he says
that.
like you go into hyperspace and you don't come out of it. But I think materialize is like colloquial. I don't know. We'll have to rewatch that. I'd want to rewatch that.
We'll have to,
But the good news, guys, this is the plan. I know we said we were going to do it for Star Wars Celebration. We didn't. This will be a weekly series for the running of Ahsoka.
Yeah, I'm just to tell you the work that got put into it. Both Chris and I had like massive, insane work days, and here we are.
Yeah. So
I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I have the blessing from the missus to watch it without her. So if she's not here to do that,
the blessing. Wow, that's from Mrs. Play. That's crazy.
Yeah, I can do that and watch it and talk about it with you. Because she originally wasn't going to get a chance to watch it last night. And she came down just as it was starting.
Nice. I think Mrs. Play is probably going to make the effort to watch it with you regardless because
Mhm.
it's Ahsoka and it's
Yeah.
Rebels, and she is one of the biggest Rebels fans out there.
She loves
Deservedly
Ahsoka.
so.
Yeah.
But anyway, this has been fantastic, Chris. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for going on a 2 hour process here. As always, guys, if you guys enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Go ahead and please drop a like if you're listening to this on Spotify, if you were listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you're listening to Google Podcasts. It goes a very long way for getting the podcast discovered, getting some help with it. Just share, send to your friends who also like Star Wars.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this on your Samsung Smart Fridge, please give me a soda. Thanks.
We'll go into that later. Thank you so much for being here, Tyler, and look
you.
forward to seeing you next week. Remember, you're all winners out there. Keep it weird. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody.